What if one of the loudest bands in history sold over 100 million records worldwide, but their own guitarist's hearing was one of the first things that price destroyed? What if four working-class kids from West London invented the rock opera without any formal music education? What if the song people still call Teenage Wasteland became a global anthem, yet most listeners never learned the band's story behind it? And what if, behind the volume and the glory, there were 11 dead fans, 2 dead band members, and a partnership that simply stopped without a real goodbye? This is the rise and fall of The Who, London, 1964. While the Beatles were charming America on live TV and the Rolling Stones were selling danger to the world, a young sheet metal worker's son named Roger Daltrey was fighting feedback and broken gear in a cramped club in Shepherd's Bush. The Gold Hawk Social Club smelled of stale beer, cheap cigarettes, and frustration. The stage was just a low wooden platform, the PA cut out when someone shouted too loud. If you wanted glamour, this was the wrong room. But for Daltrey and his 2 school friends from Acton County Grammar, Pete Townshend and John Entwistle, this was heaven. They didn't have money, power, or connections. What they had was volume, attitude, and an obsession with American rhythm and blues, coming in on crackly records from across the ocean. Their band was called The Detours, then The High Numbers, then, finally, The Who. Different names, same dream. Get out of the factory, out of the schoolyard, or land onto stages big enough that nobody could ignore them. Then one night, everything changed. They were between drummers, trying to keep the band alive. A skinny, wild-eyed 20-year-old in a flashy jacket walked in, Keith Moon. He didn't ask to audition. He didn't wait to be invited. He walked straight to the drum kit, pushed the current drummer off the stool, and launched into a song at full power. Within minutes, he had snapped a pedal and split a drum skin wide open. The kit looked wrecked. The room went silent for a beat. Most bands would have told him to pay for the damage and get out. Daltrey, Townshend, and Entwistle looked at each other and saw exactly what they were missing. That violent, chaotic energy. The feeling that at any second the whole show could fall apart or explode. That's what The Who were really about. From that moment, the classic lineup was set. Roger Daltrey on vocals, Pete Townshend on guitar, John Entwistle on bass, Keith Moon on drums. 4 London kids, 4 different tempers, one very loud idea. They became the house band for the mod movement. Sharp suits, Vespa scooters, and a lifestyle built on speed, both the drug and the idea. While most of Britain still listened to safe pop, The Who were smashing guitars, blowing up amps, and walking off stages covered in sweat and splinters. It wasn't slick, it wasn't tidy, but for them, it was perfect. In 1965, their statement to the world was only 2 words long: My Generation. 3 simple chords, a bass solo nobody had heard before, and a vocal that sounded like the singer was fighting his own throat as much as the world. Daltrey's stutter wasn't a gimmick. It felt like a kid so angry at being ignored that the words couldn't get out fast enough. Hope I die before I get old. That line turned them from just another London band into the voice of young anger. The single hit number 2 in the UK. The album of the same name reached the top 5. Respectable, but not yet legendary. The legend came when they tried something almost nobody in rock had tried before. 4 years later, 1969, rock was still mostly singles and simple albums. The idea that a rock record could tell a full, complex story was almost unheard of outside a few experimental bands. Pete Townshend decided not to care. Tommy was a double album about a boy who goes blind, deaf, and mute after a family trauma, then becomes a pinball champion and a kind of spiritual leader, only to see it all collapse. It was dark, it was strange, it was built on childhood pain, guilt, and the search for something like salvation. Record executives were nervous. Radio programmers complained the songs were too long, the story too weird, but the timing was perfect. Young listeners in the late 60s were questioning war, authority and religion. A story about a broken kid finding meaning outside normal life felt exactly right. Pinball Wizard climbed into the charts, but more importantly, Tommy made critics and serious music fans sit up. The Who were no longer just the band that smashed their gear and played loud. They were the band that proved rock could be art. That same year, at Woodstock, they walked on stage around 5 in the morning. The crowd was cold, wet, and half asleep. The Who played Tommy as the sun came up. In the middle of their set, activist Abby Hoffman jumped on stage to give a political speech. Townshend, furious, is said to have hit him with his guitar and told him to get off the stage. It was messy, it was rude, it was perfect Who. 2 weeks later, at the Isle of Wight festival, 150,000 people showed up. For a band that started in a smoky pub, this was the top of the mountain. If Tommy proved they could be ambitious, the next few years proved they could be unstoppable. February 1970, University of Leeds, England. The Who played a show that felt like a controlled riot. Someone had the sense to record it. The result was Live at Leeds, still called one of the greatest live rock albums ever made. No overdubs, no polish, just a band at full power. Then in 1971, they released Who's Next? This wasn't just a good rock album. For many fans, it's one of the best albums anyone has ever made. Baba O'Reilly opens the record with that now famous repeating keyboard pattern, really a treated organ, followed by massive chords and Daltrey singing about teenage wasteland. It never even had a full single release in the US at the time, but it became an anthem anyway. Won't Get Fooled Again closes the album with nearly 9 minutes of building tension, political anger, and one of the most famous screams in rock history. The album hit the top of the UK charts and number 4 in America, and went triple platinum in the US alone. For a moment, The Who were standing shoulder to shoulder with the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin as one of the biggest rock bands on earth. 2 years later, they did it again. In 1973, they released Quadrophenia, another double-album rock opera, this time about a young mod named Jimmy trying to find himself in a world that didn't seem to want him. It was set in the very culture that had birthed the band: scooters, seaside towns, fights with rockers. And it dug into themes of identity, mental health, and belonging. Quadrophenia went platinum and gave them another classic, Love, Reign O'er Me, by the mid-70s. The Who had it all: huge albums, legendary live shows, cultural impact. But the cracks were already there. They just hadn't split open yet. Being one of the loudest bands in the world turned out to have a bill attached. In 1976, a Who concert was measured at 126 decibels from over 30 meters away. For comparison, anything above about 85 decibels over long periods can damage hearing. At 120, it actually hurts. The Guinness Book of World Records listed it as the loudest concert ever. Pete Townshend started paying the price first. Years of playing in front of walls of amps, with Keith Moon hitting as hard as humanly possible, gave him severe tinnitus, a constant ringing in his ears, and partial hearing loss. The sound that made him famous was now something he couldn't escape, even in silence. At the same time, the relationships inside the band were turning into battles. Townshend and Daltrey were very different men. Townshend was sensitive, argumentative, and always thinking about big ideas. Daltrey was more direct, physical, and focused on performance. They loved each other. They also drove each other crazy. During rehearsals for the Quadrophenia tour in 1973, a long day of filming and arguments ended with Townshend swinging a heavy guitar at Daltrey, and Daltrey knocking him out with a single punch. It was the fight that summed them up. Pure aggression, then shame. But even that wasn't their biggest problem. Their biggest problem was Keith Moon. Moon's drumming style was like a hurricane. He didn't just keep time, he played across the whole kit all at once, filling every space. That made the Who's sound unique. It also made him almost impossible to replace. Offstage, His life was exactly what people imagine when they hear rock star, only worse. He drank heavily, used drugs, crashed cars, blew up toilets, and turned every night into a story. It was funny until it wasn't. By the late 70s, Moon's drinking and pill use were destroying his health. He tried rehab. He was prescribed a drug called hemanevrin to help him quit alcohol. On September 7, 1978, he died in London from an accidental overdose of that same drug. The coroner found 32 pills in his system. 6 were enough to kill him. The rest were still undissolved. He was 32 years old. The wildest drummer in rock had finally crashed. For the band, it was a loss everyone had seen coming, and nobody was ready for. They tried to carry on. Kenny Jones, formerly of the Faces, took over on drums. In 1981, they released Face Dances, followed by It's Hard in 1982. There were some strong songs, You Better You Bet, Eminence Front, but the magic wasn't the same. At the same time, the whole music world was changing. MTV launched in 1981 and began to reward bands with strong visuals, more than bands with strong songs. New wave, synth pop, and glossy music videos were the new currency. Acts like Duran Duran, Culture Club, and countless others were built as much for the screen as for the stage. The Who weren't built for that world. They were a live act, a noise, a feeling. 4 guys smashing instruments doesn't cut the same way in a tightly framed music video. They still had an audience, especially in the UK and among older fans. But in their biggest market, America, the ground was shifting under them. New bands were coming up. Old giants were being pushed to the side. And then, in 1979, it all went horribly wrong in a way nobody could have predicted. December 3rd, 1979, Riverfront Coliseum, Cincinnati, Ohio. It was cold outside. Thousands of fans had general admission tickets, festival seating, no assigned places. First come, first serve. People had been waiting for hours in the freezing air, pressed up against the doors, hoping to rush in and grab a place near the front. Inside, the Who were doing a sound check. Outside, the crowd heard the music and thought the show had started. Panic set in. Only a few doors were opened. 2 doors for thousands of people. When the crowd pushed forward, the people at the front had nowhere to go. So they were crushed against glass and metal. 11 people died of asphyxiation, most of them teenagers and young adults. Dozens more were injured. The band didn't know. The authorities decided not to tell them until after the show, fearing that canceling on the spot would cause a riot inside. So the Who walked on stage and played a full concert, having no idea there were bodies outside. When they finally found out what had happened, both Daltrey and Townshend were shattered. For decades, they carried the guilt, even though the decisions that led to the tragedy were made by promoters and venue staff, not by the band. The disaster forced big changes in concert safety, especially around festival seating and crowd control. But no rule change could change the simple fact: 11 fans left home to see the Who and never came back. The band would not play Cincinnati again for over 40 years. By the early 80s, the fire was almost out. Townshend was struggling with his own addictions, a failing marriage, and worsening hearing. Daltrey was acting more, singing less. Entwistle was deep into his own habits. Face Dances and It's Hard did fine on the charts, but didn't feel essential. The Who had gone from being the band that broke rules to the band that had already said what they needed to say. In 1982, after a tour, Townshend told the others he couldn't do it anymore. In 1983, he publicly announced that he was leaving the Who, effectively ending the band. There was no last album designed as a farewell, no carefully planned final show, just a slow fade. Years later, and Townshend would describe it in simple terms: they never really said goodbye to each other. One day they were the Who, then they weren't. For fans, it felt strange. For the band, it was probably the only way it could have gone. The story didn't completely end there, of course. There were reunions, charity shows, anniversary tours. New generations of fans discovered them through movies, TV, and older siblings' record collections. But the old core was gone. On June 27, 2002, just one day before a U.S. tour was due to start, John Entwistle was found dead in his Las Vegas hotel room. He was 57. The cause was a heart attack brought on by cocaine, the quiet one. The man whose bass playing had held together all that chaos, gone. That left only two members of the classic lineup, Roger Daltrey and Pete Townshend. They kept going with Zach Starkey, Ringo Starr's son, on drums and other musicians filling in the missing pieces. They played the songs, told some of the stories, and tried to honor two friends they'd lost too soon. In 1990, The Who were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In the years since, critics have written endless lists placing them among the most important bands of the 20th century. They changed how rock concerts sounded, literally by forcing sound systems and amps to evolve. They changed how albums could work by inventing the rock opera and pushing the idea of the concept album. They influenced everyone from punk bands to arena rock acts to modern alternative artists. But all that praise doesn't erase what it cost. Keith Moon died trying to get sober. John Entwistle died in a hotel room far from home, still chasing the high. 11 fans died in Cincinnati. Pete Townshend lives with permanent hearing damage. Roger Daltrey has spent decades singing songs about dying young while growing old in public. Townshend once said, looking back on it all, "We had everything we ever wanted. Fame, success, respect. Everything except the ability to enjoy it together. So, was it worth it?" The music says yes. The roar of My Generation, the soaring chords of Baba O'Reilly, the final scream of Won't Get Fooled Again. They still feel alive, still mean something real. But the silence between the surviving members and the permanent empty spaces where Moon and Entwistle should be, I suggest a very different answer. The Who rewrote the rules of what a rock band could be. They proved you could be loud, strange, ambitious, and still reach the whole world. But their story leaves one question hanging over every artist who thinks about following their path. Can you build something that lasts forever without destroying yourself in the process? The music endures. The records spin, the streams climb. Young kids still hear that synth intro and think, for a second, that the world is opening up in front of them. But the people who made that sound paid a price that can never really be counted. What's your first memory of The Who? The first time you heard Baba O'Reilly or saw footage of Keith Moon wrecking his drums? Share it in the comments. And if you want more true rise and fall stories from rock history, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more.